What can I say? That was a scrap. That was a real scrap, boys. Um, I'm not going to go as far as to say that we are extremely lucky to come away. I mean, we are a little lucky to come away with the draw, to be honest, because Crewe just put on the pressure, uh, you know, in the last 20 or 30, yeah, 20 to 30 minutes of that second half. I think all in all, we were just a little flat. Sixes and sevens, really. I don't think we were terrible. Like, we weren't god awful, but um, I think just, there were moments where we just let Crewe into our final third with ease. We kind of backed off a lot. And then we waited until they got into the final third to start pressing or putting pressure on. But they played onto that left hand side a lot. Crewe, that player Ajayi, who already has 6 goals and 5 assists on the season, their most dangerous player for sure. He got in that wide area a lot. And we had a bit of a hard time dealing with it. On the defensive end, again, we did sit back a little bit. They played a few crosses in. We won most of the headers. Credit to Pierce. I think he had a good game in terms of winning crosses and winning aerial duels. I think maybe every once in a while on the counterattack, he'd be a little slow to get back. But I think he did a good job of winning most of those headers. I think Biller had an okay first half, but he had a hard time dealing with Ajayi, and every now and again they would play like Ukwakwe on that left-hand side. I think he would have a hard time dealing with them. Curry did decent. He got forward, put a couple crosses into the box, won a couple challenges. I think he did decent. But Kalambai and Brown were a little shaky today. I think Kalambai had a hard time dealing with the holdup of Sambu. Sambu held it up, usually ahead of him. And Kalambai at times would be a little too far forward, and they would try to play a through ball. There were, I'd say maybe 2 instances where they tried to play it through Crewe, and they played it a little too heavily. Most of the time, they were played out wide. They wouldn't really play down the middle. But when they did try to play down the middle, Kalambai usually was a little bit out of position. On the attacking end in the first half, I think maybe just a little bit lackluster. I think Davison was a little alone. It was kind of akin to Sam Cosgrove last season, where he would try to hold the ball up and we wouldn't have support for him. I think we were a little late. We were a little late to support him on those instances. And Davison, I don't think he didn't play like all too fantastic. I mean, he held the ball up a few times, but other times he'd get shrugged off kind of easily, or he would go to ground looking for a foul, even though it was minimal contact. I think Senior did okay. I think he did decent, actually, Senior. Off-the-ball movement was decent. We couldn't really find him at times on those off-the-ball runs, but he tried to make those runs off the ball. He was active, got in a couple of challenges, and took his men on at times, like with pace and on the 1v1s. Not in the final third 1v1s, but like closer to midfield to try to get in the final third 1v1s. But I think Senior did okay. He got subbed off eventually for NYC, who I think did good too. I mean, he won some fouls. He got in good positions. I think NYC, not a winger per se, as Lee Finch would agree, but I think he's a bit flexible. I think he's a decent, talented player all around. He can play as a striker, but he can also play in the midfield, the wing area as well. I think he's more tried and true as a striker, but he is flexible. He is a talented player. I think putting him in the wide area is not the worst decision in the world. And then Robinson, kind of a non-factor. We brought him on a little late, though. I mean, Johnny Jackson, yet again, late to pull the trigger. That's another thing that I have against, or that's something I have against Johnny Jackson, is that he leaves it late for his subs usually. But we are still only 3 points off playoffs. A couple of teams ended up losing ahead of us. Doncaster losing to Leyton Orient 1-0, and then Barrow 3-2, losing to, I think, was it Mansfield? I don't know, but they did lose nonetheless. Yeah, they lost to Barrow 3-2. I mean, they were both ahead of AFC Wimbledon anyway, but a couple decent results. I didn't really come into this game expecting a victory, considering that we were shallow. We were lacking on numbers a little bit with all the players that are both out and, no longer on our side, Towler and Magoma back to their respective teams on loan. So, I mean, 0-0 is a fair result. I think Crewe, if you were to point a gun to my head, I'd say Crewe deserved to win that one. They had a couple of decent opportunities. They had a cross low and hard in that first half in like the 15th minute where Samdu came sliding in. I think Zadov got a slight little touch off his foot maybe. He made himself big, bounced off the outside of the post. And then they had the best opportunity of the game where we actually had a good opportunity to attack and to drive it. And then they played it short off the counter, and Ajayi put a cross in. We got caught sleeping. Maybe Lee Brown caught ball watching a little bit over his head, and Samdu tried to dive for the header and got something on it, but not enough as it went wide of the frame. But yeah, I think before that we had a decent opportunity, though. I'm trying to look back to see. Yeah, it was offside. It was NYC winning the challenge. Then it was Biller driving it forward, and Zach Robinson made a decent run. I thought maybe Biller could have played him inside in that particular instance. I think if you try to play him through, he could have been in on goal. But Biller just kind of a little late to pick his head up, and once he saw that Robinson was making that run, the ball was already a few yards ahead of him because he played a heavy touch and played that pass a little too late. I thought Biller had an okay game overall. He had a good first half and a meh second half, so it kind of rounded out to an okay performance. I think he played well in the attacking end, aside from that moment where he could have laid off Robinson. Chislett played pretty well. I think he was a little slow to start, but he got in a couple of challenges, played a couple 1-2s. I thought he did decent in terms of creating spells of possession. I think Marsh had kind of a meh game. I think he sat back a little too much on some instances. And it was kind of a non-factor, I guess. Mostly 6s and 7s for AFC Wimbledon, but good enough to keep the draw, I'd say. All right, it's that time of the video where I go over some tweets and Facebook posts. I'm actually going to make this a bit of a rapid fire one. I'll try to read off a few more and try to make my opinions a little bit more concise to fit more opinions in. I think before I go into this one, I'm going to predict that the opinions will be a little mixed. I think some people will be like, okay, good point away from home, and other people will be like, no, wasn't the best game. Johnny Jackson should have brought on his players quicker. But we'll see. Let's see. First, we'll start off with Twitter, because that'll be like the more basic bare bones tweets. At AlexWoody348, point, clean sheet, we move. Concise, to the point. At FPL Edgeworth, let's be positive for once. Clean sheet, point on the road, point with shit team sheet, point with shit formation. And one negative, actually makes a comment, 16% points taken in 2023. But yeah, no, I mean, he's right. We had arguably the worst team sheet to start off the game this season so far due to the lackluster amount of players that we had in terms of, mainly central midfielders. I think it was decent. I think, a point on the road is good. And I did mention that even though I feel as if Jackson left his Zach Robinson sub a little bit late, I think that we really didn't have all that much to work with. This one's a bit of more of a negative outlook. At Lawrence Walk-in 4, negative Jackson as usual. I've been to 3x 0-0 away games this season. Glad I didn't waste money on this one. Not too much analysis, just kind of, I guess, a little bit more on the side of complaining. I mean, in terms of away results, we haven't been the best team away this season, so I guess I can understand his frustration there. At MLines05, all said and done, I'll take that solid point. We'll be told otherwise that Alex Pierce was man of the match. He was, I feel like, the man of the match. I mean, he won virtually every header and prevented them from winning, those real clear-cut chances off the crosses. And I think defending set pieces did pretty well too. At Jack Mounty, pretty familiar face when it comes to the Sunday debriefs. Stagnant performance, roll the dice with the youngsters, most notably Bendel. I think we should utilize Bendel a little bit more, assuming that we don't sign a defensive midfielder in the transfer window. But if we do, I think we should send Bendel out on loan. And that's actually another thing I want to get into as well, the transfer window. I'll get into that once I get past these last couple comments. At Matt Thornett, what a surprise, 85th minute, Jackson finally makes a second sub despite having options on the bench. He literally has no idea once plan A doesn't work. I think it's a little bit of a stretch to say he has no idea once plan A doesn't work. I think that was more of a Mark Robinson critique than a Johnny Jackson critique. I think Jackson, he has a couple of plans, but he's not the most tactically savvy manager in the world, but he's not like Mark Robinson where he has only plan A, and once plan A doesn't work, doesn't know what to do after that. Um, and then Kane, Fortunato, have a word with yourself, my friend. Away point from home, who is going to come off the bench and change the game? NYC is most likely. I do agree that we didn't really have any other real difference makers in that bench, although I still think I understand Florent's frustration. I think for those other players that maybe wouldn't have been huge difference makers, bring them on earlier anyway. Like Zach Robinson, bring him on in the 75th minute instead of the 85th minute, and potentially bring on Pearson a little bit late. Maybe make 3 or 4 subs, because there really wasn't anything in that. It didn't really look like we were going to win that game at any real point, but we did enough to keep the clean sheet, so it was a good point away from home. And then, of course, Robert Boyce. I'm thinking of Alan Boyce. Never mind. Alan Boyce was a huge Mark Robinson supporter. Typically pretty positive outlook with him, but Robert Boyce. Not sure it's worth moaning about Jackson when he's lost 4 of his first team in Paris, Towler, Sal, and Woodyard. I would have to agree that we were a little shallow there. So not all Robinson's fault. I'm saying Robinson. Not all Jackson's fault. I think he could have brought in his subs a little bit quicker. That's one knock I have against him, but he didn't have all too much to work with. Now I'm going to get into the transfer window. I'm going to make this short and sweet, but I think there are 3 positions we need to fill. Going from least importance to most importance. I'm going to say striker, winger, central defensive mid. Most important central defensive mid to fill in the hole that maybe not Paris Magoma left, because Magoma, I don't know why Brentford wanted him to play as a defensive mid. I think he would have been better as a center mid or center attacking mid. But him and Towler, who could have potentially played as a defensive mid had he not gone recalled either, we need to get a defensive mid. I don't think George Marsh is going to be consistent enough. I think, he's a good ball-playing center mid. I think he's better as a central midfielder or center mid rather than a defensive mid. I think Woodyard and maybe another signing that we could bring on as defensive mids could work. I don't care if we get someone on loan. I just think that we need to get a defensive mid. Bendel, we could roll the dice with him for sure. But, still a youngster, still has some stuff to learn. And I don't know if he's going to be consistent enough to play alongside Alex Woodyard, who's really established himself this season as a starting center mid. And then winger, we need someone who could take people on 1v1. Asal, good at that role. Aside from Asal, I don't think we have that. I think Chislett is more of a central player. He's not really much of... I don't think we should play him in the wing. Good ball playing, good positioning, but he's not really known for his 1v1 ability in taking someone on. I think he can create some space for a shot down the center, or maybe, receive it and play someone on the overlap or square. I think he's good on the ball, but not much of a skill player per se. And then maybe NYC with pace, but he's not a tried and true winger. He's more of a striker. So we'll see if we do sign a winger. But I think defensive midfielder, no matter what, we need to sign a defensive midfielder. Striker, maybe, to fill in that hole that I was gonna say fill in the hole that Hudlin left, but he didn't really make too much of an impact. But have someone that could sub in like for Davison. And then once NYC goes back to Brentford, we can have him playing alongside Josh Davison, maybe in a 2 up top, or have him sub Davison, or have Davison sub him, whoever is the better player going into next season. We need to sign someone for a 2-year, maybe 3-year, if we do decide to sign a striker, 2 or 3 year contract to fill in the hole that NYC will leave. That's all I have to say. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys on the flip side.